You're listening to the Today's Conveyancer podcast, the leading source of information for residential property lawyers in England and Wales. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up to our free newsletter at todaysconveyancer.co.uk. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Hello, welcome along to the latest Today's Conveyancer podcast. Today I'm delighted to welcome back to the podcast Nick Hale. Nick is the CEO of Movera, a group of companies. You'll probably explain it better than me, Nick, but a group of companies in and around the conveyancing space. You have been on the podcast before. It's great to see you again. The topic of conversation today is looking at what the future of your business looks like, what the future of conveyancing looks like, and also thinking about what is going on in and around the sector at the moment. So great to have you on again, Nick. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you. Great to be here.
For those of you that didn't listen to the previous podcast, please go back and have a listen to it because it's I'm biased, but it's excellent. But Nick, tell us a bit about yourself and your role, please, at Movera.
Sure. So I joined what was then OMP Group back in April 2022, brand new to the sector. My background is Californian-based startup, Palo Alto, actually, in retail technology. I spent 7 years in BT, including running their ventures portfolio, KPMG, Accenture, and a few other places. And slightly unusually, I grew up in Burma, Pakistan, and Nepal. And then my highlight currently is I am very proud to say that in addition to my 3 children, my wife has just retrained and qualified as a doctor, which I think is an incredible feat.
So we first met, you'll have been about 6 months into the role, I think, probably. Mm-hmm. You're now a bit longer in situ. I'd love to know, Nick, what you wish you'd known then that you know now.
I joined the sector and I was delighted to join the team inside of what's now Movera because I recognised that we had an opportunity to create a comprehensive technology-led property legal services platform that could improve the home moving experience for our people, partners and clients in a sector where all 3 groups of those stakeholders had historically arguably not had expectations that had been met that were similar to the experiences they might have in other sectors. And if you look at the various businesses and brands inside of Movera, we have 6 brands that each strongly represent different audiences and different parts of the market, but are all connected with that purpose of improving the home moving experience. And everything we do in each part of the business has a very consistent principle, which is that the experiences that we provide are digital when they can be, and they're personal when they need to be, recognizing that people are at the heart of everything that we do, that communication is all important, and that if we are to disrupt and continue to make significant gains, as we are proud to say that we have been doing over the course of the last 2 years, we'll never be able to do it alone, and therefore we exist in an ecosystem of all sorts of players across the value chain that frankly we are excited to continue to work with and excited to continue to explore new ways of delivering, whether it's any element of remortgage or a sale and purchase transaction, or indeed a technology solution that that layers across the value chain and knits other players together. In terms of what I wished I'd known then that I know now, hindsight is a wonderful thing. But to be honest, I've probably been slightly slower than I would have liked to really understand how the sector and the experiences we deliver knit together across the ecosystem of partners. And it might sound, somewhat simplistic, but I wish I'd gone and sat in a dark room for 2 weeks and done nothing else than kind of receive a sheep dip and just been walked through every individual player, technology solution, and so on and so forth. If you look at the sector we're in, I personally believe we have already entered a period where it is very clear that change has already started and it will accelerate, and that there is the emergence of players who can contribute and can collaborate in a way that perhaps the sector has found more challenging in the past. Just to go back to me answering your question, I spent an awful lot of time trying to understand our businesses, but I possibly, earlier should have taken more time to make sure that I understood, all of the players and the solutions and the challenges, that were outside of Movera rather than inside of it.
There's a lot of moving parts in this sector. That's probably one way to describe it. It's a challenge. It's a criticism of people that come in from outside of the sector. But I must admit, my view on some of that influx of people is that it brings some fresh impetus. It brings some fresh ideas as well into the space. Yeah. So what's the direction of travel of the group? You've got 6 brands you mentioned, and apologies, I'm not going to remember naming them all, but they include LMS, they include OMP, Cavendish Legal. What's the direction of travel for Movera?
As I said earlier, we are a tech-led property legal services platform that exists to improve the home moving experience for people, partners and clients. Digital when it can be, personal when it needs to be. LMS, which clearly is a business that we co-own with Connells, has got, and I won't go into all of it, a brilliant set of existing propositions, really strong partner base with direct lenders and other key players across the sector, and has got some really innovative, exciting tech solutions that will become much more visible to folks over the course of the next few months. And clearly data is at the heart of that. If we look at Conveyancing Alliance and Broker Conveyancing, which is a panel manager utilising tech and other aspects of the proposition to face into the broker market, again, we have got exciting plans for how we will continue to strengthen and deepen that proposition and the partner base within it. The second half of this year in particular and going into next is super exciting for us. And then we turn to our conveyancing brand. So O&P Solicitors clearly is a big volume player in the remortgage market. We have got further ways in which things like AI and automation can provide a better experience for our people to spend more of their time using the technical skills and the other experience that really can aid the pace and the quality of how an individual experience is delivered, and also exceed the expectations of clients. Working with LMS as an example, in the course of the last 12 months, we've done over 500 remortgage transactions in less than 48 hours. We've done 1,500 in less than 5 days, and that number keeps growing. And then in sale and purchase conveyancing, whilst we're extremely proud of what we do, and in some shape or form, by the way, across the group, we touch about 25% of all remortgage sale and purchase transactions in the UK. So across those constituent parts. So whilst we're really proud of our existing position, in reality, everybody knows that the largest players actually combined have a relatively modest market share. And we believe that there continues to be an opportunity for us, and the phrase we use is to lead the market on merit, delivering experiences that people are absolutely delighted by, so that clients and partners walk towards us in greater numbers than they have before, and therefore we will grow our share. Over the course of the last 12 months, we've now got a net promoter score in conveyancing to the high 60s, early 70s consistently. That is that's a result that across multiple sectors would be deemed to be really very good, but we know we've got some way to do. The other thing I'd like to add, the direction of the group is frankly about trying to get to a position where it is clear that we are, and I'm going to repeat myself, a leading player recognised on merit for improving the home moving experience in ways that people hadn't anticipated and are delighted by. And a large part of that is around our people agenda. So we've put a huge amount of investment into building the Movera Academy. That enables people at all stages of their career to join Movera in any of our businesses and to progress and flourish during their time with us, supported by a learning and development set of pathways that we think are really compelling and really exciting, beneficial clearly to our people, but also again to our partners and our clients. And indeed, in a recent engagement survey that went across the entire business, we were really encouraged that two things. Firstly, the outcomes were strong in terms of engagement, which was actually, dare I say it, a slightly pleasant surprise, because actually over the course of the last 2 years, in a really constructive, positive way, as a business, we've been growing and evolving pretty fast. It's been a period of change, but it's great that, the indications are that people feel good about it and continue to feel good about it. But the stat or the outcome that we were most proud of is that 74% of those that responded said that they strongly agreed in the strategy of Movera and intended to be part of the team 24 months from now, which basically says we've got a committed team of people that are standing shoulder to shoulder, walking together, trying to shape Movera for the future. We talk a lot about founder mindset. Movera it was launched on the 19th of October last year. So, it's quite nice for us all to think that we're shaping this thing that didn't, kind of existed, but didn't quite exist in this, in this way, even, kind of 7, 8, 9 months ago. I guess in summary, what I'm saying, David, is we will continue to follow a similar path that we have before. We believe there's still a long way to go to make sure that we, as a significant player in the market, can help everybody deliver leading experiences in remortgage, sale and purchase that meet and exceed the expectations of clients and partners and indeed lenders. We believe that through the constituent parts of the business, we have got technology, people, thought leadership, and much, much more that can help to contribute not just to our own plans and the execution of those, but also just as a constructive player in the sector. It's clear that we've entered a period of change. It's clear that there is, now with a new government in particular, a real appetite and hunger to make sure that house building and indeed home moving is a strong driver of growth. And we believe we're well positioned to be a really positive force within that.
A huge amount to be applauded in what you've said, Nick, but I'm going to nitpick at this stage, and I'm going to delve into what might be an uncomfortable conversation. At a recent conference, sizable conveyancing businesses, we're careful about how we phrase them,
Sure.
were described as factory muppets. Not my words, I'm very clear about that. A lot of it is related to what is perceived to be work done by inexperienced or unqualified staff. Unnecessary and inquiries is a bit of a microcosm of this issue. Unnecessary delays, that kind of thing. I mean, look, one of the things I guess I would throw back to you is, one, is that a fair way to describe you guys? I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is going to be. But, what's the defense here?
I was in the audience and I heard that remark. I mean, the first thing I would say is, if any person in Movera used that kind of language to describe one of their peers or somebody else that we worked with, that would not, and I'm understating my remark, that would not meet our professional standards. Right? That is not, as a sector, in my opinion, how anybody should speak about anybody else, whether whether they are a peer or another party, in any way. Just shouldn't. I thought the language was entirely inappropriate. I think the second thing is it showed perhaps a real lack of understanding and therefore respect for some of the larger players, and people talk about volume players. What have we done as Movera over the course of the last 2 years? We have created career pathways for people. We have created a whole raft of learning interventions that upskill people that help people develop their careers over time. Any single person who joins Movera goes through the Movera Academy. Our NPS scores, as I said, have risen to the high 60s, early 70s. Our engagement scores are high. The number of people who believe in our strategy and are committed to being here, i.e. they are positive, engaged folks in our team, is really high. And the work we have done to utilize technology to create, again, experiences that are digital when they can be and personal when they need to be. The work, as an example, we're doing on using AI to assist on inquiries management, recognizing that we need to engage with other people on the other side who may not have the level of sophistication of tech solutions that we have got, but we need to not let that get in the way as a barrier that either limits the quality of the experience or indeed, of course, slows things down. So I guess in summary, I actually think that and I'm clearly speaking for Movera here, we're doing a really good job of building a track record of progress with remortgage, sale and purchase experiences that are increasingly consistent to a high quality standard, i.e. net promoter score, that many businesses wouldn't even measure or understand how to measure. We are building the skills and the careers of people who are already with us and those that walk towards us and join us and that is happening in greater numbers. And we've got a group of people who are passionate, you might laugh at the language, but creating joy in the eyes of clients and people and partners, right? And if you put that together, you could say that we're, arguably really doing a proper job. And, if I look at the relatively infrequent number of complaints that are escalated to me, it is not an exaggeration to say that in 70% of cases, we are being chased for failures on the other side. And we are being asked to intervene or to provide clarity to a client who hasn't had expectations set clearly. In our case, as an example, if you instruct OMP solicitors or you instruct Cavendish, we will call you within 24 hours and walk you through what the experience is going to be, walk you through what you need to do to keep matters moving, walk you through what we're going to do and how together we can make sure that the experience is delivered at the pace and quality and consistency and transparency that everybody wants. We are building, as I said, a business that's got high professional standards, high expectations of quality, high expectations of our people. And, to go back to the beginning, certainly under, our policies and views on professional standards, that language, frankly, just wouldn't exist, or if it did, would not be deemed to be acceptable. If the person who made that comment is there, I would be delighted to host you and walk you around Stockport Exchange. I'd be delighted to introduce you to our people, gain an appreciation for our technology. And I hope that through that process, you'd have to sit quietly and realise that actually you have a great deal of respect for what 500 plus people are doing each and every day. And in parallel, what we're doing to make sure that 12 months from now, it's even better than it was today.
A robust defence, I think it's fair to say, Nick. The podcast does come with a swear warning if we're not too careful.
Just to finish on that, David, to be honest, it was simply disappointing to hear. But it tells a bigger story around the fact that there is too much frustration and tension that doesn't need to be there. And what we can do with technology solutions across the value chain to help release some of that tension, but what we can also do by leaning in the right way and being, frankly, a bit more professional and human, I think all of those things would go a long way.
We're fast moving towards the end of the time we have for the discussion. I just wanted to quiz you very quickly on the developments that are happening in and around the conveyancing space. We have the special general meeting of the Law Society coming up, and there is this furore around the updated TA6 form. I mean, first question, will you guys be taking on the new form? Are you maintaining the old form? What's your stance on that? And then secondly, what do you think this means for the space moving forward?
The answer to your first question, our professional standards team are working through it now. I won't give you a straight answer to that to that question, not because I'm trying to duck it, but to be honest, I'm, by my own admission, not the best placed person to determine the direction of travel. As I said earlier, I am still relatively new to the sector. I am not a qualified solicitor, and therefore, frankly, we've got people with greater depth of expertise technically than I have. What is clear to me is that there was a misstep in not engaging the sector in a set of conversations that the sector really wants to be part of to determine what the right path forward is. Upfront material information is, one big challenge of the sector. Inquiries is another big challenge of the sector. AI is an opportunity for the sector. I really think it's an enabler of, frankly, people doing, the best work of their careers with greater and greater ease. Going back to the Law Society, the frustration was clear to see, or is clear to see. There is probably a larger group of people who want to lean in and have intelligent, informed, constructive conversations about what changes can be made to the structure of the sector. And that applies to regulators as well, than there perhaps has been before. And therefore, missing, that practical reality, I think has got the TA6 potential changes into the kerfuffle that is today. I hope that can be straightened out, because frankly, the last thing we should be doing is talking about what the process of a change should be. We should be talking about the substance of a change and what benefit that is actually going to provide, and how we land it successfully across the sector, recognising that in sale and purchase, we still have a very fragmented sector with 4,000 plus players across, and adoption by the majority in a consistent way is clearly the way forward.
With the LMS business, I know one of the benefits that it brings is some insight into what that future pipeline looks like for conveyancing. While we have you, Nick, any insights or any thoughts that you can share about demand, what might happen over the course of the next 12, 24 months? It still feels like we're very heavily reliant on interest rate reductions, but what are you seeing out there in the market?
Firstly, I think that the recent change in government to the Labour Party has clearly, I think, kind of raised the volume of discussions around what the housing and home moving market should be doing over the course of the next few years, and as I said earlier, clearly seen as a driver of growth. So I see that as only a good thing, because it just means that more activity, more conversation, more initiative, more support. I'm sure that we'll go from A to B in a few zigzags, but I do see the direction of travel as a positive for the sector. I think interest rate changes, on remortgage in particular, well, actually in everything. I think on a first reduction, I think the thing that people will be thinking about is whether a second reduction is anticipated relatively shortly thereafter, and therefore whether actually that might get people to kind of maintain their position for a little bit longer. So what I mean by that is it's difficult to anticipate, of course, when market level activity will lift, but I do believe it will lift. My instinct is, as we go through the autumn and into next year, I think the remortgage activity in particular will grow from where it has been over the course of the last 6 months in particular. On sale and purchase, we're going to have to watch carefully for what consumer sentiment is. I would be surprised if through the remainder of this year and into next, we didn't see the higher levels of activity that, frankly, we're already experiencing in 2024. Now, I find this a slightly difficult question to answer, because every article I read suggests that, the market has lifted. We think we are beating the market. I mean, it's always impossible to know, what proportion of our growth, which is about 70% up, year on year, is down to market level activity versus our net promoter score, the propensity for people to come back to us, etc., etc. But going back to your question, I think we will see Remo kick in over the autumn and going into next year, and we'll see higher volumes. And I believe that sale and purchase, conveyancing, we will see higher levels of activity, over the course of the next year or two. Beyond that, who knows? If I'm right on the first bit, I'll be delighted.
When we were planning this discussion, Nick, we were saying that you could probably spend the whole podcast on any one of the topics that we've covered today. So I appreciate that we've only been able to cover a lot of what we've talked about quite briefly, but I'm very, very grateful for you joining the podcast, sharing some insight and sharing some of your thoughts as well about what's happening in the sector.
It's an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time, and a big thank you to everyone in Movera.
The Today's Conveyancer podcast is available on your preferred podcast provider, also available on todaysconveyancer.co.uk. My thanks to Nick. Thank you as ever for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
You're listening to the Today's Conveyancer podcast, the leading source of information for residential property lawyers in England and Wales. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up to our free newsletter at todaysconveyancer.co.uk. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter.